Between the two of them, the inside of Coates, Barker gets too heavily involved. And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, one and all. It's that time again. Yes, it's the Academy powered by VRRC. Of course, we're talking about the Clio Cup. My name is Jack Oliphant, and I'm joined as ever by the effervescent Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, doing very well, thanks Jack. Great night last night with VRRC and the Super Touring cars, and as you say, we're here now with the Clio Cups, and you know, from the previous 2 rounds, absolutely phenomenally close racing, so really interested to see how this championship develops.
Yeah, you say that as if it was a surprise that we enjoyed ourselves last night. It's always a good time with VRRC, Dave. Yes, of course, 60 minutes of practice, 15 minutes qualifying, which is about to get underway. Race 1, 20 minutes, and then a reverse top 10, I believe, Dave, for race 2. Do correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct.
There we go. I knew there was a difference between the Academy and the Super Touring. I'm bound to get them mixed up, though, during the night. We're, of course, at the brilliant Donington Park to go for the GP loop. We're not going for the whole Melbourne loop as they go left and then down into a few more not chicanes, what am I on about? They go left through the chicane into the hairpins, of course. We're just doing the more touring car, national circuit basically, but still brings up some brilliant racing. And the guys have been out there, they've been practicing, and the times are ridiculously close. So I'm very excited to see how they're going to get on in qualifying, especially. Talking about prizes, Dave, there's plenty on offer. Take us through it.
Yeah, there is indeed. So we've got a set of our AOC gaming headphones there for first place prize, as well as 2 hours one-to-one online coaching. Second place is PowerMax Car Valet bucket. Kyle Felvus giving this to his dads for Christmas, I believe, with also 1 hour one-to-one online coaching. And then third place, 1 hour one-to-one coaching, as well as an hour's worth of race car setup. So yeah, all prizes. You can see half of the prizes are actually developed purely on trying to get drivers a little bit more up to speed and make them better and faster drivers as well. The whole point of the Academy.
It is indeed, and we can talk about the round 2 now, because the Silverstone National, the graphics on your screen. Nicky Taylor taking the most amount of points there. Robin Walters in second and Carl Felvus in third. And I'll tell you what, wait until you see the championship standings, because it is really tightening things up. Driver of the round, of course, was Nathan Blank, and in this series, driver of the round doesn't get any physical prizes, but it's still always nice to be recognised, and hopefully will give everybody a bit of encouragement to really push forward, even if they have a poor race 1 to impress us in race 2 and get a little bit feisty out there, give us something to watch as well. So well done to Nathan Blank. Speaking of the championship, that is genuinely how close it is. Robin Walters, 63. Nicky Taylor, 62. Carl Felvus, 61. And we can't write off Martin Johnson or realistically Nick Sutton either, down in 5th. And then you got Paul Zanetechi in 6th. 7th is Nathan Blank. 8th is John Jones. Paul Laramie in 9th. Then Kenny Press rounding out the top 10. There's a whole host of other drivers there as well. Probably hoping to make a few more gains here tonight at Donington. I'm sure they'll be putting in the practice. But Dave, that is a ridiculous top 3, isn't it, really? We're separated by essentially 2 points.
Yeah, it's a ridiculously close championship, especially at the top, but there's a few drivers quite far down that we've seen real hints of absolute brilliant driving. So Nathan Blank getting driver of the round last time out, down there in 7th. It just feels like he's just started to find his form in this car, and he's actually putting some really impressive times on the board. 2nd overall in time training for Donington. So even though he sat there 7th place in the championship's still got a long way to go, and I imagine there'll be some serious climb to be done there. The same as Brad Smith, an unlucky start at the start of the championship, but another driver to watch as he climbs his way up through the grid.
Yeah, they're all names realistically that we see in the Super Touring Championship as well on a Tuesday night, really making waves and impressing us. So looking forward to seeing how they get on now. They're mixed just as the basically silver category, isn't it? The Academy drivers. So without further ado, we're going to have a quick look at Donington Park from the eyes of Dave Marshall as he razzes around a Clio Cup car.
So across the line for round 3 of the Clio Cup Academy powered by VRRC. Turn 1 is going to be 3rd gear, trying to get off them brakes and roll the speed in through the apex, get super good drive down towards trainer curves. Now it's really important going down here that we focus on getting the car back nice and tight left going towards the old airpin. So follow the curve round, down to 4th gear nice and early and braking as we're turning in right. Crucial that wheel isn't slightly left there, otherwise the car will not want to rotate up the hill and get the drive, which is absolutely crucial. Now towards McLean's, the same again, wheel straight before you hit the brakes, if not a little bit right, carry third gear, and you can carry so much speed there if you can get that front end pointed nice and early. Copper's super hard corner, see we take quite a lot of curb on the entrance, make sure it's a bit like Felvus, not too early on that throttle and pushing that front end wide. There's a lot of time to be gained and just holding a slightly tighter line. Now down the Dunlop straight towards the final chicane, slightly earlier on the brakes than maybe you can, but get on the throttle over that first curve. Try not brake late enough that you're just coasting over the curve. Try and use that diff to power it through. Make sure you tune in at 7:20 on VRRC's Facebook and YouTube page.
And we're back with just under 11 minutes to go in qualifying. We can see we've already seen some fast laps. A lot of people trying to use the draft as well, as Carl Felvus makes his way into 4th place on that flying lap just then. Robin Walters currently tops the timing tower with Nicky Taylor in 2nd place. I've just moved in as we were coming back into qualifying though. Purple Sector 1 shows that Nicky really is quite capable around here. He just maybe needs to hook Sector 2 up a little bit more to try and take pole position away from Robin. Brad Smith in 3rd place. Carl Felvus moved himself up to 4th, as we saw. And Nathan Blank currently sitting in the top 5. But probably the driver that's worth noting here, Dave, and probably a driver that's more suited to one discipline of driving than the other, in my opinion, would be Paul Zanettecchi. Because, of course, Paul Zanettecchi yesterday, driver of the round in the Super Touring Championship, and I believe he took 2 class victories as well. He definitely got 1. I might be mistaken in the second one, but he was absolutely flying. Yet here in 6th position, 6/10 off pole, and it was the same at Silverstone. Really, it didn't seem to quite have the handle of the car just yet.
Yeah, so I think, if I'm honest, the Super Touring cars that we were in last night, they've got a trait of being very loose, and you know. Very, very aggressive differential in the front of the car. So the front of the car either, throws the back end of the car out, or on throttle really pulls the car in quite aggressively. And that just seems to suit Paul's driving style. These Clios require a little bit of a smoother driving style maybe, but also the car moves around nowhere near as much. So if you're slightly late on turning or require a little bit of mid-corner rotation, if you haven't got the car set up on entry to do that, you sacrifice a lot of time. So I think it's just a case of Paul spending a lot of time driving the Super Touring, and then jumps in a car that is a lot more stable like these Clios, and it's just taking him a little bit longer to adapt. Whereas you can see Robin Walters up there in 1st place, absolutely flying in these Clios. And I think he's really found his mark for these cars. He seems to be really, really clicking with them and gelling them with quickly, and you can tell that because of how quickly he can put the time on the board as well. Within 1 lap, Bosch 17 flat straight away. A very good lap time indeed.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and you sort of answered my next question, really, about the driving styles that you have to initiate for the Clio, because, of course, a lot of people might go into or look at a car and think, oh, that's a huge hit there at the curve and Paul Laramie, and he's lucky he's not in the real-life car. I think that would have ripped the left-hand side suspension apart, but to be fair, he might actually have a little bit of damage. Might have to come into that one. Certainly ruined his lap. Robin Walters is going quicker yet again in Sector 1, but just before we see him cross for Sector 2 and obviously finish the lap, I was going to ask about the different driving styles, because if you looked at a car, you might think, oh, if one car is front-wheel drive and this car is front-wheel drive, then surely they drive the same. But it's not the case, is it? I mean, as you mentioned before, a little bit slipperier in the Super Touring, whereas this one you have to be a bit smoother. Not the kind of car you can grip it and rip it.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, it's a trait of any real front-wheel drive, low-power car, really. It's all about carrying momentum, to get all that braking done nice and early so you can get on the power as soon as possible and keep your foot in it through the corner. The cars that are higher power, so the likes of TCR cars, touring cars, even the likes of the Civic Cup, which are running around 250 brake, them cars with that big aggressive diff in the front, you can actually afford to throw them around a little bit more, and that power, I'm going to say, it almost masks sort of not carrying the speed you necessarily can through a corner, but yet you can still set a similar lap time because you sort of average it out over a lap. These Clios and the likes of the Mini Coopers that are, you know, just over 100 horsepower, the drivers that are used to driving them sort of cars, like Nicky Taylor, you rely on that momentum to make up the lap time over the full lap. So basically, you know, it doesn't hide the time you would lose where you can gain it on big power. So these Clios almost actually a bit more of a test for a driver than something with actually more power.
Yeah, it's a sort of car that you almost drive with your fingertips, don't you? You want to be smooth, rather
Exactly.
than
Yeah.
just gripping it with all your biceps and just ripping it around a corner, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, very
A
interesting.
bit
Maybe.
like MR2 Championship as well, 750 Motor Club MR2.
Ooh,
Them are
good
sort
call
of a
out.
similar sort of thing where the car's on its tiptoes, runs on semi slick tires, but you know it's actually the drivers that pedal them cars are really quite good, even though it's classed as club racing. They're really pushing the cars on very hard, and it's quite a knack to keep the momentum of them. But what you find is them drivers who nail carrying momentum through corners actually turn into very good drivers when you give them more power.
Well, it's the same sort of thing. Obviously, that's a front-wheel drive example, but a rear-wheel drive example is the likes of the MX-5 Cup or the Ginetta G40s, which, of course,
Yeah, or
um,
Ginetta Juniors, yeah. Yeah,
Ginetta Juniors, yeah. So the Ginetta G40, obviously, that chassis, basically whatever tires you stick on it, it's still got a low-powered engine, isn't it? So the Ginetta
exactly.
Juniors,
Yeah.
that's why so many juniors come out of that championship knowing how to handle a car in pretty much any discipline and about these sort of core principles of racing a car around a track. It is quite sensational, really. Anyway, enough about the driving styles and the differences between different cars and championships. Probably should talk about a little bit what's going out on track, because Nicky Taylor did improve a couple of laps ago. It wasn't good enough to topple Walters, but it was quicker by about half a tenth of a second. So now Taylor and Walters have closed that gap to about half a tenth of a second. Felvus has gone into third place, which means Brad Smith has fallen down to fourth. Mick Sutton has worked his way up to fifth, which is a driver that you mentioned in practice. Probably wasn't showing his true pace in practice. So he's a little bit closer now, we'd probably say, maybe what we were expecting. But as the drivers are coming out of the pits for the second time, obviously on their second lot of runs, and get some fresh tyres on the car and everything like that, we're probably expecting a few more drivers to maybe get into within 0.3 of a second of Robin Walters.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Actually, Martin Johnson currently on screen. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, but he's been a bit of a trait of the reverse top 10, hasn't he? He's nailed it, and I believe he's been the first place driver for both reverse grid races in both first rounds, and that's what's helping bring them championship points back up. So Martin Johnson actually he's found himself in a scenario where he's quite a consistent points hauler in actually giving himself that sort of 8th, 9th place at the end of race one, which granted I'm sure he wants to be further up the grid, but is it maybe slightly tactful and maybe thinking, you know what, I can get a better result if I purposely pull myself closer to the front in race two and get that nice, good, clean start at the beginning of race two.
I knew a driver that I used to commentate on a Tuesday night before I did the League of Champions or Super Touring Championship or anything like that, and it was in MX-5s on iRacing, and we would do a random reverse grid. It was literally a spinning wheel, like Wheel of Fortune style spinning wheel, and it would pick out a number that would be reverse grid. And we had a bloke who actually tried to guess where the wheel would randomly spin to, and he'd purposely come off the throttle. Say he was in 15th or something, which is one of the options, and he would go down to 20th because he was like, I just had a feeling that's where the wheel was going to put pole position. And the annoying thing was, which sounds stupid, the annoying thing was, he was right more often than he was wrong. It's sort of like, because you sort of look at that and you think, oh, that's a stupid thing. You should just finish 15th or something. But the annoying thing is he did actually get pole quite a lot, and he did end up winning a lot of races because of it. So
Wow.
it is a viable strategy. If probably a bit more confident if you're just finishing 10th and it's a top 10 reverse grid, though, I imagine.
Oh yes, I would say so. I definitely think Martin Johnson, looking at the sector times, he's getting faster and faster the longer this qualifying session goes on. So I'd imagine Martin Johnson is going to close a few more places yet, and I would imagine we'll be closing that gap into about Paul Zanetechi. He was about 0.4 off where Paul is at the moment. So yeah, I'd expect Martin Johnson to close a little bit. Paul Zanetechi is another driver who I just don't think he's quite found the rhythm of this qualifying circuit yet. I imagine he might creep up a little bit more. Mick Sutton putting a good time there in 5th place, and Brad Smith, He got pushed down, I noticed, at the start of the qualifying session from 3rd to 4th by Felvus, but 2/10 separate them top 4 drivers. An incredibly close start of this race. And I tell you what, you know what Donington's like. All it takes is a slightly poor run out of the old hairpin when that pack's really close, and you can easily lose 3 or 4 positions there.
You can indeed, yeah, and with the way that these Clios follow each other, they're not exactly aerodynamically reliable. Aerodynamically reliant, should I say. They are, of course, reliable cars. But that means that you pretty much can follow nose to tail throughout, 85% of this lap, can't you? The only reason why you can't really follow nose to tail for the entire lap is because you don't want to crash into each other going down the braking zone to the final chicane, because that is quite a tricky section of the track, and a lot of drivers take that at varying speeds as well. I mean, some drivers will gain 2/10 out of that out of this little complex that we're going through here on board with Martin Johnson, and other drivers will clatter a curb accidentally and lose half a second. You don't want to be running into the back of them, do you? So as Martin Johnson comes across the line, he does jump himself into 8th place ahead of Paul Laramie. So Johnson, you're absolutely right, Dave, is getting stronger as qualifying goes on. Unfortunately, he's only got this last lap to do it. But Mick Sutton, luckily, there we go, Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast, as ever, on the ball, as I was about to speak about it. Mick Sutton, green sector 1, so he's got a strong chance. He's already in the top 5, but he's got a strong chance at maybe upsetting Brad Smith or Kyle Felvus. Not sure if he has Nicky Taylor or Robin Walters in his back pocket, but there's every chance he could really move himself up 1 or 2 places.
Yeah, this is where it's crucial, especially if you see a delta on your lap time. You go into that last chicane thinking, how late can you possibly brake? That actually looked fairly clean through that last chicane. So let's see if this is a lap improvement. Mick Sutton is a position up into 4th place ahead of Brad Smith. So actually, crucial in the very last moments of qualifying, managed to get himself up through the grid. Can he press another driver who's done a green sector? Let's see if he can get himself within that top 10. That'll be a huge confidence boost going forward into race. That might have been a bit of a distraction there. Actually, as there's been a development up the very front, Nicky Taylor on the very last lap of qualifying by 9 thousandths of a second has took provisional pole. Robin Walters not setting green sectors 1 and 2, so I don't think it's going to be enough to beat Nicky Taylor's lap that he's putting in the dying stages here.
I'll tell you what that is, and it's absolutely astonishing lap time that Taylor's pulled out, and he's pulled out a few around the same lap time, hasn't he? And so has Robin Walters. So realistically, you could argue that they're very consistent, which is what we love to see in academy racing, and obviously pole position shootouts like we're seeing here. Mick Sutton not going fast to sector 1 or sector 2, but I'm sure he'll be very pleased with his 4th place. But just a note on Brad Smith as well, who I'm sure will be slightly disappointed that he's fallen down to 5th position in the sort of dying embers of this qualifying session. However, in the championship, he is lagging all the way down in 11th place. So to be honest, to be in the top 5 amongst the likes of Taylor, Walters, Felvus and Sutton, and even Nathan Blank as well, who's 7th in the championship, he'll be pretty pleased, because he really does need to make up quite a big points deficit if he's got any hope of competing for any kind of prizes this year, or this season, shall I say. Because of course, actually, the academy, I'm used to actually talking about super touring now. That's like 6 weeks long. This is only 4 weeks long. We're in the penultimate round.
Well, yeah. So basically, actually, I was going to say, we'll quickly have a jump down to Nicky Taylor, as I've dragged him in now to the comms box. Nicky Taylor, we've got you on pole position on the very last lap of qualifying there by 9 thousandths of a second. I mean, I take it that must have been preying on your mind to get that lap in absolutely crucially. And what was the pressure like? Probably seeing your Delta Green there, knowing you were on the lap that could potentially do it there.
Yeah, it was, to be fair, I was just wondering about the first corner, because the first corner I kept screwing up every lap, and yeah, I finally got the first corner right, and then from there I was like a 10th up, 2 tenths up, and then coming into the last chicane, I dipped left towards the straight, which lost me about like half tenth, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering how close it is between me and Robin, that would have been enough. So could have gone a little bit quicker, but still, pole on the last lap, can't complain.
Yeah, I was actually explaining to Jack that you're probably one of the drivers that lends himself slightly better to this car than most. You used to driving Coopers in real life that are very low power and rely massively on carrying that momentum, and you were saying, you know, half a tenth doesn't sound like much. You know fine well in these sort of cars, you lose half a tenth and you can't just make that back up on the straight by using a bit more power or anything like that. So you're finding that the driving style and the way you drive these Clios are actually quite similar to the real life Mini Coopers that you drive.
They are very much so. They handle pretty much identical to a Cooper in real life, how it would around here. The times are relatively similar. So yeah, it's just kind of right in my ballpark, and had to go down to as low as possible fuel, and I literally did conk out on the slow down lap, so left it to wire the fuel. I think that's the first ever time I've actually gone down enough fuel to conk out on the slow down lap, but oh well, pole means quite a lot around here, so let's try and get a decent start and just pull away.
It does indeed. Huge congratulations there, Nicky, on putting it on pole, and let's see how you do in race 1. Let's hope we're talking to you afterwards.
Good, Dave, hopefully.
And there we go, Jack. Nicky saying it feels almost identical to the Mini round here. I mean, that's a fair credit to the guys who make these cars, and it just shows how you can actually translate that real life knowledge onto a sim, and it really does work.
Yeah, exactly. And just before we get going, do I sound the same as I did before? I just had a bit of a technological meltdown as you were doing that interview.
You do indeed.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, absolutely fine. My mic broke after I said that it was the penultimate round of the championship, which is absolutely nonsense. We're halfway through the championship. It's a 6-round championship, which means we're on round 3. Okay, so there we go. I apologise. I misled everyone. Anyway, yes.
To be fair, I just thought you meant there was 4 rounds left, Jack. So I missed that as well.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I've whistle blown myself. There we go. There's the graphic on screen, actually. So Tom O'Farrell just proving his point. Donington National, followed by Snetterton, Thuxton, and Cadwell to come as well. So I do apologise about that. Anyway, yes, there is definitely a translation. I think some drivers can jump from one car to another and jump from one championship in real life to another championship in the sim as well. And I think that is a fairly impressive skill. You'll quite often find that it's the younger generations that can sort of hop to and from. I know the likes of Jason Plater and Michael Crease always struggle a little bit, whereas obviously a lot of the real world drivers, they are able to just do it at a flick of a switch sort of thing, quite literally having to turn their computer on. So it is always very impressive. It's always something that I struggle with quite a lot, Dave, but I do know that obviously you've had a couple of outings in not only the Minis and the Civics, and you're pretty dab hand at the real life stuff as well, aren't you? So you must enjoy jumping from the real life into the sim and use the sim as training for the real life whenever you get the chance.
Yeah, I mean, my whole background in the sim side was always rallying in the sim side, and then I sort of developed into sort of a bit of a circuit driver. So I tell you what, there's nothing that really prepares you, and you're always worrying a little bit in the back of your head what it's going to go like in real life, and you're thinking, if I lose the back end, will I be able to catch it? Will I put myself in the wall? And I tell you what, if it wasn't for the sim, there's moments in real life that we've had huge sideways moments, and it just comes instinctively because of the amount of time I've spent on the sim. And without that, in that moment, that's the difference between you sort of keeping it on track or spinning out and putting it in the wall. So yeah, sim has helped massively with the conversion to real world.
Can be a difference for the massive bill as well and an enjoyable podium position. But we'll get back to that a little later on because we've got racing to deal with. 5 lights are on, engine notes are rising, and you know what that means? It's race time here on a Wednesday night in the Academy. Clio Cup, powered by VRRC. Nicky Taylor and Robin Walters going neck and neck as they go down towards the first corner, but Carl Felvus doesn't want to be left out of the party. He flies to the outside, but I think it's going to be Robin Walters keeping that taking that first place away from Nicky Taylor, who of course just pipped him right at the end of qualifying. Carl Felvus, I know Adrian in the chat on Facebook will be very keen to see how he gets on. There's a little bit of contact between himself and Nicky Taylor, who he knows full well from previous races in the Championship and the Super Touring Championship now as well. The Taylor, Felvus and Walters Walters falling down to 3rd. I got my yellow cars mixed up as there's cars flying off in the background, one of which is Martin Johnson. Nathan Blank is another. Of course, he did quite well in the previous round, and there's a driver going flying stage exit left, and that's Kenny Press. Sad to say that I've crashed into that wall a fair few times. Well, only once, but it was still a painful one. Hopefully he's okay. Nicky Taylor, Felvus, Walters lead the way with Mick Sutton in 4th place, just about holding on.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a messy start there. Robin Walters getting hung out on the outside of Nicky Taylor. That just gave Kyle Felvus the perfect opportunity to get up the inside, go down trainers, look very tight, but Robin didn't really have anywhere to go. Had to tuck back in behind Kyle Felvus, and that's actually gave Nicky Taylor a little bit of breathing room here, starting to get a little bit of a breakaway. Mick Sutton's managed to hang with these guys, so keeping pressure on the back of Robin Walters, but fantastic racing up front, and exactly what we want to see. I tell you what, Robin's probably got the bit between his teeth now, but he's smart. He'll be thinking, you know what, let's not put the pressure on too much. Let Kyle close up to Nicky Taylor if he can. Let them start the battle, and it might bring it a really easy chance for me to get up the inside or get the overrun on speed there. So I think Robin will be using his head here.
Yeah, I'm sure he will be, but Smith and Sutton, it's worth noting as well, big championship points for those drivers at the moment, but of course, they're not gaining anything on the top three who are pulling away as Blank, Press and Johnson ignite a fight that may have started, to be fair, a little bit earlier in the previous lap as well. We didn't really get to see much of it though, but we did see Kenny Press flying into the wall, which I would have expected suspension damage or at least some steering damage to be affected, but it seems that his car is on the straight and narrow.
Great undercut.
And that is a brilliant undercut through McLean's there by Nathan Blank, through into Coppice. No worries whatsoever. So maybe there is a touch of damage because it did look like Press had to overslow the car as he was going through the right-hander there. Johnson now going around the outside of him, and there we go. The front end of that car, well, the windshield anyway, does look a little bit damaged, doesn't it, Dave? A little bit of a sitting duck there, I think, for Kenny Press.
Yeah, he looks quite considerably down on lap time, if I'm honest, but it was still a fantastic move by Nathan just to break a little bit early, get the undercut, and he was super hard on the power, calculated so he didn't have to get back off, and it meant that move was quite easy and nicely done there. Robin Walters here is still on the back of Kyle Felvus, and to be fair, them gaps actually look fairly even. They don't really seem to have opened up or closed at all. Mick Sutton's still there. Brad is just about hanging on. As Daniel Adams, we've got a spinner on the exit of turn 1. So luckily that looks like no other cars have been too heavily involved with that. Whether that was just a spin, because we know the exit curb on that turn 1, if you get that back wheel hooked, it can have a significant effect on the back of the car and can rotate it and spin it out. So let's hope that was just an innocent spin by himself and there wasn't another driver involved with that. Paul Zanetechi just seems to be struggling to get onto the back of this top train, but if these start battling, that's not to say that he can't get himself back into this picture, and he's one of them drivers where if he can get on the back of someone's bumper, he doesn't let it off. He attaches that hook and he can really hang on to the back of another car. So a very good driver under pressure.
You could say he Xanattaches that hook. No, you probably couldn't, actually. It's a bit of a stretch. Anyway, he's in 6th place as we look further forward. Carl Felvus and Nicky Taylor. Felvus, he's turned the wick up a little bit here, hasn't he, Dave? He's started to... Yeah, he's found some lap time. It is always easier to, obviously, chase than be chased. We always know that. We always make that sort of observation. But sometimes when you are behind another driver and there's only about a 10th in it, you do up your game and you find yourself finding an extra 2/10, don't you? And you think, actually, I'm a little bit quicker than you now. I feel like I could get past and maybe go for a race win here, even though in qualifying or in practice, you were a good 10th or 2 behind the drivers. So when you're behind somebody just that slight touch quicker than you, you start to learn a little bit more about how they apply the power. You see their braking traces as well, don't you? Where they hit the brakes, how they come off it as well, how long they trail brake through. Do they roll the speed through off both pedals? You know, it's very interesting. I think Carl Felvus, he's proven in previous weeks and previous races that he's a bit of a sponge. He absorbs that on the fly, which is quite a key component for a racing driver when you're sort of finding your footing in the sim racing or real life racing world.
Yeah, definitely. And what I would actually say is it looks like Kyle Felvus and Nicky Taylor, to me, they actually look like they've got quite a similar driving style, both taking very similar lines through the corners, both carrying similar sort of speed, and there's a flash of lights there. Now, does that mean from this point of view, does that mean Kyle's working with Nicky? He's going, let's go. Mick Sutton having a look up the inside of Robin Walters, but look at how much time that's lost them. Look at that. That's nearly a second lost in literally one corner. So that's why maybe we saw a flash of the lights from Kyle there to Nicky to say, let's go. We can't afford to trip over each other over ourselves here, because Robin Walters will be right on our case. And sure enough, they have gone. Kyle Felvus didn't put a lunge on Nicky Taylor, so I would imagine them lights meant let's go, let's work together.
Yeah, smart driving for the both of them, and obviously Mick Sutton's not entertaining the idea of that at all. He's not working with Robin Walters to catch up. He just wants to score points ahead of Walters. And if you're wondering what the championship standings are, and you're wondering who the protagonists are, well, Walters is leading the championship, but after this race, he's only leading it by 1 point. After this race, he won't be leading it, but it'll only be slight adjustments. So, you know, there won't be anything big upsets as long as there aren't any big upsets out there on circuit. Kenny Press and Johnson are still going at it with Mick Sutton, still looking up the inside of Robin Walters, but that has been probably the worst run he'll have out of the last chicane today, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, there is a move on into the last chicane, Dave, but unless it's bang on the money, it's ill-advised, because look at the gap that Walters has on Sutton now. It's about a second, and Zanatachi, like you mentioned before, is right there, and he's trying to get the undercut out of the first corner and down Hollywood and Craner curves. He hasn't been able to do such a thing, but there is the threat. There's the warning signs to Mick Sutton saying you're not just playing with the guys ahead of you, you got people to worry about behind as well.
Yeah, exactly that. I did say we run a coaching masterclass session every Monday with the academy guys, and I basically go through tips of the car, the tips of the track, and little key notes of where are good overtaking opportunities and things like that. And one of the key points I did say was going into that last chicane, as Brad Smith looks like he might get round the outside of Mick Sutton. Oh, nearly took the nose off Mick, but that is a great move by Brad Smith there. Into fourth place, and Paul Zanatachi is going to have the run as well. Paul's going to be up the inside going into chicane. Now, is this a move that is going to be on? Mick Sutton's trying to edge it a little bit. Mick Sutton is really late on the brakes. Paul Zanatachi braking a little bit earlier. Obviously, the corner was a lot shallower. And who was that in the wall? Who was that in the wall? I believe Daniel Adams. Daniel Adams. Thought that might have been Robin Walters there at first glance as we went past. Yeah, Robin Walters still there in third place. Yeah, so as I was saying there before, going into that last chicane, yes, it is an overtaking opportunity, but unless if you've got a clear car alongside, it's not worth losing the time if you can't make that move stick. So for me, the chicane is a real nice place to send a little dummy, but not ever ready to overtake. It's more get the run through the chicane, possibly get a move done into turn one. My preference, doesn't have to happen, but you know, from traits as Nicky Taylor gets a little bit sideways there on exit. I tell you what, I think Kyle Felvus has gone from working with Nicky to going, you know what, I think I'm a little bit quicker now. I'm going to try and get past, I think, now, because we've got enough of a buffer. Back to Robin Walters there in third place.
Well, the problem for these guys now is the fact that Walters obviously doesn't have much of a threat from behind him either, so he can work on just moving forward. And Felvus, to be honest, I think he was forced into putting Taylor under pressure, because Taylor, through old hairpin especially, just completely turned in too early and ruined his exit. And then up the hill, Felvus had such an overspeed, but it's difficult to overtake as you go through the left kink and into McLean's. So it ended up that they held each other both up, and Taylor, as you said, it seems to be making little mistakes here and there. And here goes Felvus again as they come out of Redgate. I think it's going to be a potential overtaking opportunity, but equally, it's where do you pick your moments? Do you go for Craner curves up the inside, a little bit dangerous, or do you go for old hairpin, which is the more obvious attacking maneuver, but it can be covered off quite easily? He's chosen neither because he wants to try and pull ahead of Robin Walters, a little bit more. Walters now only half a second. It was 0.8 of a second in the previous lap, and over a second before that as well. So Felvus really needs to, like you mentioned, start working together. Dan Adams apparently has a bit of a tech issue, which is maybe why he was facing the wrong way on the exit of the final chicane, and has had a couple of crashes elsewhere. As Mick Sutton holding off Paul Zanatachi. I said it was Zanatachi attacking him before. Luckily, Dave corrected me and was more on the ball than I was, because he mentioned that it was actually Smith who got past Sutton, but he is making contact a little bit with Zanatachi. He almost looked like he came across him a little bit there on the exit of Coppice, in my opinion. But Sutton and Zanatachi both live to fight another day and live to fight another lap. They will as well, because you can no doubt see that they're going to be side by side, just like the battle for the lead here. Nicky Taylor trying to defend on the inside. Carl Felvus going for that undercut potentially. And in fact, if he gets a sweep at his nose up the inside, it may well have worked. No, not quick enough, unfortunately, for Felvus. They'll have to do it another lap. But the longer he sort of messes around with this, Walters will be there sniffing the pieces and trying to lick them up as well. So as Felvus goes through old hairpin, Taylor getting a better line this time, but Walters Probably a better line than both of them, to be honest. Just behind, 0.3 of a second. The gap is getting spicy, Dave.
It is indeed, and I did actually notice at the start, Robin Walters not quite getting on the lap times that we expected to maybe see from him. Not the speed he had in qualifying either, but now he has done a 1:17 flat, so lapping faster than both the drivers in front of him on their best lap. So Robin's starting to find his bit of his form. Maybe that was not the balance with the car, with the full race fuel in. Maybe he's just starting to really find his way now, and he's looking quite attacking. This is one of the things. What he's doing now is he's attacking Kyle too early, which is actually meaning Nicky Taylor's getting away again. It's very tempting as soon as you get on the back of the car to start showing your nose and going, you know what, I'm going to have a move here, I'm going to have a look. But what that actually does is it means the lead driver can get away, and you can see straight away they've both lapped nearly 2/10 so Nicky Taylor, just for the sake of that little bit of battle in there. Midpoint of the race as Nicky Taylor runs very wide on the exit of turn 1. He's going to have a little bit of dirt on his tyres now going down through Craner, but I imagine it'll still be completely flat for him through here. This is going to be really interesting to see whether Robin really starts to battle for this position or whether he tries to push Kyle Felvus on, because these drivers really need to work together, otherwise Nicky Taylor will get away here.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of a threat for the last 7.5 minutes from 4th or 5th place, is there? But you never know. If they start hitting each other off the circuit, they could lose out. The seconds could tumble, shall we say. Simon Thorpe, and is that John Jones just ahead of him as well, as John Jones hits the curb on the left-hand side. To be fair, that is the racing line you want to be on, but maybe not that far over. It means he misses the apex on the right, but still gets a good amount of speed thrown through there as well. And Simon Thorpe hasn't been able to take advantage of the tiny mistake. Going through Coppice, Simon Thorpe getting a little bit closer to that apex yet again, but John Jones, yes, again, carrying a pretty good speed, to be honest, through there, and not having to worry too much about it just yet. Speaking of worrying about something just yet, Taylor and Felvus both flashing the light. Taylor, I'm not sure if he's just trying to say hi or if he's warning us there's a move on for Felvus, who fakes one way, goes to the inside, and then juts back out to the left as well. Not knowing, Taylor won't know where to put his car, but to be fair, he's absorbed the pressure quite well, kept calm, didn't move his under braking zone, but as there's a little bit of contact, there's a touch of the brakes by Nicky Taylor, just warning Felvus that not to hit each other off. Walters is there to eat up any scraps, but is there going to be scraps to be fed off? We'll have to wait and see as they go through old hairpin, pretty much nose to tail, only 1/10 of a second between them. You can't get much closer in Clio Cups. I guarantee you, from an onboard, these guys won't be able to see the track in front of them. Felvus going for the late move around the outside into McLean's. Taylor's going to have to defend that, make the second apex, and you pretty much made the move. Felvus holding on to that outside. Taylor giving him the manageable room. Just about to fit a Clio Cup car through there as they go into McLean's. And I've done this around the outside. It didn't work well for me, but it's worked brilliantly for Felvus. I think he could just about have the run here on Taylor as Walters hunkers up the back of them. And indeed he has. Felvus cuts the nose off Taylor as Walters tries to go around the outside. Walters is not going to be able to probably make this stick. He's going to be on the wrong bit of tarmac. But actually Taylor lets him slot back in. Taylor, Dave, I think Taylor just almost let him have that one. That's quite astonishing.
Yeah, you know what? Taylor's thinking of the championship here. He's got to bear in mind, if he has a spin here and drops back down through the pack, that's huge point haul that the other drivers will get over the top of him. As Robin Walters is going to try and go around the outside of Kyle Felvus, going down through Craners. I tell you what, boys, this is fantastic racing here. Exactly what we want to see. Absolutely about as close as it can possibly get. Look at this. This is 3 cars down through Craner curves. Kyle Felvus on the outside. It's going to be cut under the inside by Robin Walters. Not quite enough on the brakes there to get the undercut. And Nicky Taylor's looking at this and going, you know what? I'm going to have this place back, Robin.
He is indeed, but as they go up the hill, it's still side by side. Apparently, Zanatachi's got past Mick Sutton as well further back, which is a fight we would love to see. But to be honest, we have to keep our eyes on this one as they're still pretty much door to door, aren't they? Taylor and Walters, you're not sure which way this is going to end up. But one thing's for sure, Kyle Felvus is loving seeing it in his rearview mirror, isn't he? Because already he's got about 0.6 of a second gap between himself and, at the moment, Nicky Taylor, as Robin Williams cuts back to the inside into the chicane, showing his intentions very early on indeed, but he's going to have to probably drift out to the slightly wider, and there we go. We've seen, Dave, earlier on that the chicane isn't the place to be making a move, and I think they've learned their lesson as Nicky Taylor gets a poor run and really aggressively moves over on onto Robin Walters' line there. Robin Walters having to swerve to move out the way and tries to go around the outside of the first corner. There's going to be contact. That was a little bit inevitable by the angle that the cars were going into that turn 1, but unfortunately, shall we say, Neither have come off too badly. Brad Smith is looking at this thinking, 4 minutes more of this, I've got a chance at a podium here.
Yeah, he does, and I tell you what, more importantly, I think Carl Felvus is probably in his mirror going, you know what, that might be the break I need. As long as I can just keep looking forward and putting them lap times in, it's looking very, very good indeed. Yeah, a little bit aggressive there from Nicky maybe to come back across the line. Robin Walters had a significant overspeed as Brad Smith has gone wide. This is going to be hard for him to get back on the track. Can he defend this position? Paul Zanetechi round the outside with the grip. Mick Sutton, will he get the undercut? He has indeed, I believe. Mick Sutton with the undercut going forward into the right-hander. Paul Zanetechi finds his way from 6th place all the way up into 4th. Smith has dropped down to 6th place. This is not good for Brad's championship. He needed them points there. It was looking like it was a brilliant points haul sitting there in 4th place. He's got the slipstream with Mick Sutton down towards the last chicane. He's not going to put a move on here. Will he get the run through and then get a run onto turn 1 on Mick Sutton? It looks like he's not going to quite have the speed, but with the slipstream, watch out for the lunge here. Will he do it?
Yeah, Paul Zanetechi then round the outside as Mick Sutton has again asserted some dominance here on
Nicky Taylor's
Brad
past
Smith.
Carl
And
Felvus.
Nicky Taylor going through on Felvus. So Felvus had a really nice gap. No, Felvus back through on Nicky Taylor. I'm not sure if that was just a timing glitch there.
Oh, we're not quite sure what has happened there. That really threw us.
It was a timing tower. It was a timing tower glitch. There we go. Yeah, because obviously Felvus was on it before, and then for some reason it did flick back and forth. But yeah, it was a timing tower glitch. Felvus hasn't lost the race lead to Nicky Taylor at any point during this lap, and I'm sure he'll be hoping, Dave, that he won't lose the lead at any point within the next 2 laps as well. Because to be honest, we're probably getting towards the penultimate lap of the race at this point.
Yeah, we are indeed. And I'd imagine Kyle's dad was probably nearly stood up off his chair there when I said that. Very sorry and big apology there, but we're only going off the data we've got on that timing tower. Kyle Felvus does still lead the race by nearly a second here. Robin Walters has got within half a second of Nicky Taylor, so this is going to be really interesting. He seems like he's got that fire back a little bit, and Nicky Taylor doesn't seem to have the run through that chicane. In fact, Robin Walters is looking very, very racy indeed, but he needs to have patience. Look at that, nearly half a second faster than Taylor on that previous lap. He's gone for the lunge. What a lunge that was. Nicky Taylor's got the inside line back. Fantastic racing, boys. Absolutely mega.
200 IQ there from Nicky Taylor. He knew what was coming, didn't he? As soon as Walters hit the brakes, Taylor saw him coming. He thought, I've got to turn in a little bit late here and get on the power nice and early. It's exactly what he did, and he got a brilliant cutback. To be fair, I admire the move, the guts that it takes for Walters to send one up the inside into that T1, because you really do have to make it stick and trust the driver's not going to turn into. So, like you mentioned there, Dave, brilliant racing, fantastic racing respect. This is everything we want to see in not only the Academy, but the other series that we do here at VRRC. And I'm sure every sim series wants to see this type of racing. It's what you enter for, really, isn't it? To have as close as you possibly can get, while still being as respectful as you can get. And unfortunately, it doesn't always go right. I'm sure even if it's unintentional, Mick Sutton, and I think that was Brad Smith, ended up making contact, which means Paul Laramie goes through on Sutton, and I'm not sure. No, he's going to be having a look at Brad Smith. He hasn't quite gotten past him yet.
Yeah, so Paul Laramie's probably looking at this and going, you know what, I didn't think I had a bite at the top 5 here, but I tell you what, if it's going to offer me on a play on the last lap, I'm going to probably have a look here. Looking very, very racy indeed, and Paul Laramie, a very, very good driver in himself, races in the real world. As we go back to Robin Walters, you can see he's got a very rich running left exhaust pipe there for some reason, but yeah, it looks great. I tell you what, Robin Walters is looking like he's really trying to put the pressure onto Nicky Taylor on this last lap. This is going to go all the way to the checker.
Yeah, there might be a steward's inquiry to see why on earth he has nitrous oxide in his car, but it seems to be doing quite well for him, to be fair, isn't it?
Octane booster.
Yeah, exactly. If anything, if that was the case, then Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvus' drive would be even more impressive. We are on the last lap. Carl Felvus has a decent gap now, 0.8 of a second, and to be fair, that is astonishingly good, to be fair, isn't it, Dave? Because, obviously, he didn't qualify quite as close to Taylor and Walters as we might expecting. We were expecting the 1-2 battle to be between the 2 yellow cars, but off the line, Felvus got his nose right in the mix, and ever since then, he's been a real competitor for the race lead. And indeed, he is going to come across the line for a race victory as long as he can keep it on the back stuff. As he comes out the final corner, he does indeed. So Carl Felvus, flashing his lights, will take the checkered flag here at Donington Park for the Clio Cup Academy. Race 1, Nicky Taylor finishes just ahead of Robin Walters, and to be honest, I thought that was a much easier done deal than it was actually ended up being. Paul Zanatechi with 4th, Brad Smith in 5th, Paul Laramie in 6th, with Nick Sutton disappointed, I'm sure, all the way down in 7th place. John Jones in 8th with Simon Thorpe in 9th. 10th was Martin Johnson. You wouldn't guess it, would you, Dave? Pole again for race number 2. Nathan Blank is somewhere in the background there. He comes through the last corner. He'll be in 11th place off the back of the grid as well. And then we've got Kenny Press to come across the line. Unfortunately, Daniel Adams ended up with a little bit of technical issues, which means he is 10 laps down. However, what an absolutely astonishing race that we've been privileged to watch here between Carl Felvus, Nicky Taylor, and Robin Walters. And to be fair, it wasn't just the top 3. Zanatechi, Smith, Laramie, and Sutton all came in to play as well and gave us some brilliant racing to watch as well. So big congrats to them. But I believe, obviously, we're going to focus on the top 3, Dave, and specifically, you're going to talk to them.
I am indeed. So we'll go straight down to our 3rd place finisher, Robin Walters, only by less than a 10th across the line. Really calculated run through there to possibly get Nicky before the line. But what a race that was between you 3 boys. An utter pleasure to watch that. There was a little bit of contact here and there, but the race and respect between all 3 of you there, you could tell that was so enjoyable to race in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, credit to Kyle and Nicky. That was a lot of fun actually, albeit very, very disappointing for myself because I've been sort of quick all week and expected to be on pole and hoping to be on pole. That sounded quite big-headed, didn't it? But yeah, so a little bit disappointed, but really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you say it sounded big-headed. I didn't take that as being big-headed. At the end of the day, if you top a time in practice and no one else has managed to match that, that's why you've set your expectation there. And to be fair, Robin, I saw your times in time training, and it was very, very impressive. And I'm sure Nicky and Kyle both also say they were probably worried at the pace you had. I take it, was it just the balance of the fuel and just the opening laps? You didn't quite manage to get the balance of the car there, hence why you sort of dropped down a little bit, and we're probably quite surprised at the outright pace Kyle and Nicky both had at the start.
Yeah, I know exactly what it was actually, and it's caught me off guard a little bit. It was racing amongst other cars. So I've done so much practice solo that I've not really sort of factored in, and I know you should, racing around other cars. So I missed a lot of my braking points because I was so close to the car in front, and it threw me for quite a while and had to sort of readjust a little bit to other people's braking lines, racing lines and braking points.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a huge test for you now with the reverse top 10 race. Huge congratulations, Robin, on bringing home 3rd place. Fantastic racing, and really looking forward to seeing what you can do in race 2.
Great, thanks, Dave.
I will move forward on to our P2 finisher. Nicky, what a race that was. Fantastic effort defending off Kyle for most of the beginning of that race. And I tell you what, it was so close at the end. As hard as it would physically go.
Like, to be fair, at the start of the race, it got away quite well. I knew Carl was going to be quick, because he always is, because he's just superhuman at the starts for some weird reason. But yeah, so I literally just stayed glued to that white line on the start, and but car felt good for about the first 7 minutes, and then after about 7 minutes, my car just went off, and I got caught massively, and then, but on the line, honestly, I was trying to squeeze Robin as close to making out of the move without hitting him, and it went alright, so, yeah, but well done to Kyle, he deserves that one, and we'll get him in the next one.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing whether you can indeed. Huge congratulations, Nicky, on a P2 finish, and we might be talking to you after race 2.
Hopefully, cheers.
And we'll move forward on to Kyle. What a race, what calculated driving, and I tell you what, the moments there where you could barely get a sheet of paper between you and Nicky's bumper go down through Craner curves, that takes some serious bottle to not do it with any contact and make sure you get your braking points right and everything like that. Huge congrats. What a race that was, Kyle.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, going down Craner curves, I trust Nicky a lot, so I know he can sort of handle that pressure. And I think you picked up on it in stream, but the flashes of the lights, I was just trying to work with Nicky because I knew Robin had the pace because in practice he was just rapid. So I was trying to work with Nicky, but then when I realised Robin was catching us back up, I just had to go for the move on Nicky and try and pull away.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly what I read there. And to be fair, that shows such maturity in your driving and thinking about the race as a whole rather than just getting onto someone's bumper and thinking it's the soonest possible place you can get past. So huge congrats, Kyle, there. A very, very impressive drive. And what a race that was between the three of you. Huge congratulations.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, that race start was that whole race was just brilliant. Lovely battling. Thanks to the guys for that.
We're looking forward to seeing what you can do in race 2, mate.
Thanks.
And there we go, Jack. Interview with our podium position finishers. And if I'm truly honest, the sort of battle I would really love to be part of myself.
Yeah, well, you need to dust off your gloves then, Dave, don't you? And get yourself out there, to be honest. I think it's one that we're hoping to see again and again and again. And, you know, the reverse grid, it's always a little bit more difficult. Hopefully we have as clean a race as we possibly can. But hopefully, maybe we'll even see some other drivers getting on the mix. I mean, we've seen some brilliant drives right at the front of the field. I think Martin Johnson has been done fantastically well in pole positions and reverse grids in previous rounds. So fingers crossed that we can see some real, you know, eye-catching performances from elsewhere. Because of course we've got the driver of the day to be talking about as well. And to be honest, it's hard to look away from the top three after that race one. But you never know, someone may catch our eye, and we want you in the chat to let us know your opinions as well. We've got 15 seconds until race 2 gets going, so please do type away in the chat. Who is your driver of the day thus far? And it may well change after race 2, which is about to get underway because we got 5 lights on, we got engine notes in our ears, and that means for the second time tonight we are at Donington racing in the academy, and it's a good start by Martin Johnson. He's got an absolute monster off the line. I think Simon Thorpe maybe just dropped behind John Jones, and in fact I think Mick Sutton's actually coming through him as well on the inside. And who's that really flying through it? I'm not entirely sure. I think it was maybe Brad Smith, but unfortunately we have a driver facing the wrong way, and he's had a collision with Brad Smith. It was Simon Thorpe, unfortunately, who I believe started in second place, so really not a good start for him. Nicky Taylor in 7th, Carl Felvus up to 6th place already. Robin Walters in 5th, Paul Laramie 4th, Mick Sutton 3rd, John Jones in 3rd, but unfortunately Kenny Press is ending, well, if anything, it's actually earlier than he went off in the last race, but lap 1 at Donington really hasn't been Kenny Press's day. Carl Felvus in 6th, Martin Johnson leading the way.
It really hasn't, and there is a safety car call out because of that incident. You know what? I want to say that was really reminiscent of a Clio crash that did happen there not that many years back through Craner's. A slight tap at the back end of the car on the inside and just on the cold tyres, and you only realise how fast these cars are actually going when they exit the circuit.
Yeah, well, people can't claim that we're not realistic here at VRRC then, can we? Because we're clearly out here being getting as close to real life as we possibly can, unfortunately, for Kenny Press. Anyway, so Martin Johnson leading the way after he's won every single reverse grid race so far in the Clios. Dave, I mean, safety car probably wasn't exactly the thing he was hoping to see, but you have every opportunity to think that he's going to pull away again. John Jones in 2nd place. But Mick Sutton, for me, is probably the driver that he's probably going to be most worried about, because Sutton showed that he has upped his pace in race 1. In the end, contact meant it didn't quite go his way, but he was easily quick enough for a top 4 finish, if not, you know, top 5 at worst. So realistically, Johnson and Jones, who finished around the 10th, 9th place, will probably be a bit worried about him.
Yeah, definitely. And I tell you what, we saw Brad Smith in the pits there. That's definitely not what you want to see. But I see on the time tower, Brad Smith is back out of the pits. So if he can manage to get back onto this pack here, he'll be pushing that car absolutely as hard as that can go to try and get onto this back of the pack. Tell you what, it hasn't been the race that Simon Thorpe wanted either, going from 2nd place. It looked like he just got a bit crowded on that inside, maybe didn't have anywhere to go, maybe received a tap. And then we've got up front Martin Johnson, a driver, as you say, who's been dominant in these reverse grid races. To be fair, a safety car is probably the last thing he wants right now. He had a nice clear gap there. He was gone, he was away, and instead he's have to bunch back up. This has meant that you've got the likes of Robin Walters, Kyle Felvus right there with him, as close as they ever have been, and he hasn't got that breakaway now. So let's see what Martin can do on this restart.
Yeah, just to make everybody aware as well, the championship, there is still only 2 points in the top 3, so we'll read that out in a second because Martin Johnson has put his foot down before we even got to the chicane, and he's got a good gap as well. He's done that very well for John Jones in second place, to be fair. Gotten ahead of Mick Sutton, who I think was caught napping just a touch. One driver who wasn't caught napping in the background, though, is Carl Felvus, looking up the inside, white lining it absolutely against Robin Walters, who just about holds on to that place with a little bit of speed around the outside. But for how long as they go thundering down Hollywood and into Crater Curves? It's this top 3 again, isn't it, Dave? It's the 3 drivers we've been talking about all evening long. Realistically, they need to work together to get into the top 3 on this race. But it doesn't look like they're much interested in that at the moment. They want to have a go at each other.
No, so this is a bit of a different scenario. Yes, they can work with each other to try and push themselves forward, but actually it's a better bet, especially when the mid-pack themselves is actually to probably try and slow down the driver behind them to back them up into the other drivers and get other people past them. So that's probably what I would see as they go nearly 3 wide into the right-hander there. Jesus, boys, let's calm it down a little bit. What a race this is going to be.
Yeah, that was a little bit touch and go, quite physically, when it comes to the Nicky Taylor and Carl Felvus there. But obviously, we're going to shoot a little bit further forward as they are going 2-1. I think Felvus is going to have it, but more importantly, Sutton's going to have second place, or is he? No, he's going to go to the beach and then come back as well. And unfortunately for him, that means he's lost out to Paul Laramie as well, and probably this train of cars. Robin Walters makes a little bit of contact with himself and Mick Sutton, and importantly, he's put a car in between himself and Carl Felvus. Nicky Taylor's trying to go around the outside as well. Paul Laramie, this could get very, very messy, but Paul Laramie in the yellow and black car is really in amongst it here, with Robin Walters finally getting through in the orange. Mick Sutton in between himself and Carl Felvus, and then Nicky Taylor looking to take advantage. Martin Johnson leading the way by a good 3 seconds now. It's amazing how his reverse grid seems to go. It's quite astonishing. But to be fair to him, he has been very consistent on the races that he has finished in first place. Brad Smith, as he goes past a spinning Adams, who maybe his tech issues have continued, because that did look like a bit of a weird snap, to be honest. Bit unusual, that one, but we'll hopefully see him a little bit further on, if not in the next week with a fixed technical component. But Carl Felvus, all of a sudden going for challenging on Robin Walters, has actually been overtaken by Nicky Taylor as well. So this way, it's not quite going to plan for him, Dave.
No, not quite. And I tell you what, I think it was maybe Daniel Adams just caught a back wheel on the grass there as he turned in, and that's what made it so violently flick. And I tell you what, a driver that is really impressing me here, a great 5th place position finish in race 1. And Paul Laramie, let's remember the times Robin Walters was doing. Paul Laramie very, very much going with Robin Walters here, away in 4th position there. Very good drive from the number 2 car. In fact, he's gone through into P2 as John Jones looked like he got a tap there from Robin Walters. It was just slightly out of screen there, so we couldn't see what went on. But Paul Laramie up into P2 at the moment. Will he manage to defend this from Mick Sutton? What a change of events that's been. Robin Walters now needs to try and get through nice and cleanly here and get back onto this pack. Carl Felvus just
Laramie's
up ahead.
wide.
Yeah, in fact, Paul Laramie has gone wide. As I was saying that, curse of the commentator, if ever I've seen one. Paul Laramie back down into 4th place, and Kyle Felvus, previous race winner, right hot on his heels now.
Yeah, I'm glad you get blamed for that one, because I get blamed for all of them normally. Martin Johnson loving life, it has to be said. But Paul Laramie, not quite so. He enjoyed himself for about a quarter and a half, maybe 2. But as Carl Felvus looks up his inside, he's giving him the flash of lights. Maybe that's just to remind him not to come any further across. But unfortunately for Laramie, he doesn't really know where to go. He cuts off the front nose of Robin Walters, who obviously made a little bit of contact earlier on. Felvus goes through, gets a half-decent run, but not as good as Paul Laramie, who's done a brilliant job to fight back at that one. He absolutely nailed the apexes there. Felvus isn't going to leave his inside line without a fight, it has to be said. But Nicky Taylor and Mick Sutton have pulled ahead. Robin Walters makes to look this 3 wide. No, not quite, but he is still looking to follow Carl Felvus through on the inside as they go through the first corner into Hollywood. It's still going to be Felvus ahead, though, and Laramie and Walters door to door. Is Walters just going to leave that door just a little bit open in case Laramie comes across? No, you wouldn't put your house on it as he tries to fly around the outside of Crater Curves. Is that a lunge into Old Hairpin? It normally follows, but not today. Laramie going a little bit tight through the apex, but it doesn't matter in terms of the run. Zenitachi in 7th place, probably hoping to mop up any thrills and spills along the way. Not quite fell to him just yet, but he's probably very much hopeful that it is. In fact, it looks like actually he's going to make some moves of his own. He's not worrying about waiting for these drivers to make a mistake. He's going to make a mistake himself.
Yeah, and this has actually looked like a great drive from Kenny Press as well. Nice to see him manage to get back in that headspace after the race 1 incident and the race 2 very quick left-hand exit there at the gravel trap, putting really good pressure on Nathan Blank here, racing very, very well indeed. So Kenny Press doing a great job. Robin Walters there looked like he had a little look up the inside of Paul Laramie, but look, that's really cost him on the exit, and he's got drivers all over the back end of him, and Paul Laramie is just driving away a bit.
He is indeed, as Walters looks up the... well, she is defending from Zenitachi, who obviously has Blank and Press, who's a brilliant recovery driver, has to be said. Obviously, we saw him in the kitty litter on the outside of Old Hairpin at the beginning of this race. A brilliant drive from him so far. But Zenitachi looking up the inside of Hollywood on Robin Walters, probably something he didn't expect to be doing at the beginning of tonight after seeing the practice times. But he is going up the inside of Old Hairpin. But we've seen Robin Walters, he just gives enough room, but he hasn't given enough room for the corner there, and he comes off the outside, and that has absolutely ruined his run up the hill, and it's potentially ruined his race. Still 10 minutes to go, as Blank very much sends it up the, cuts the nose off of Zenitachi there, who still ends up in 7th place somehow, because Blank has managed to get through. But Robin Walters there, Dave, that's the big news story so far in the first 10 minutes of this race, now down in 9th place. More crucially, Taylor and Felvus, his 2 championship rivals, in 3rd and 4th, but we have to focus on this battle.
Yeah, we do indeed. Nathan Blank down the inside of Paul Zenitachi. Paul Zenitachi goes middle of the road to defend that spot. Nathan Blank moves back left to open that up. Will he end up with the exit run here on Paul Zenitachi? If I'm honest, it doesn't actually look like it. And just out of shot, that to me looked like that was Nicky Taylor going to try and go around the outside and mix up. Will he get the undercut up the inside, just about staying on the inside of the track? And I think he's got a nose here. He's going to try round the outside through the left, going down through Crater Curves. This is very, very brave from Nicky Taylor, but this could be absolutely crucial to get these points while Robin Walters is there struggling himself.
I think he invented a new racing line through the first corner there. He was so far over the inside, wasn't he? It was almost bordering on track cutting, to be honest, but I'm sure he'll probably be let off from it. Mix it, because I think it was just about legal.
It was definitely still legal. Yeah, I saw a tyre on the red and white, yeah.
That's good enough for us. That's good enough for us. Nathan Blank and Paul Zenitachi. Zenitachi up the inside of Nathan, who does get the move. So Zenitachi is finally in 6th place after his first 10 minutes of trying to achieve that accomplishment. Kenny Press in 8th. What a drive by Kenny Press,
It is a good
Dave.
drive. Very good drive from Kenny.
We saw him obviously off the circuit, didn't we? At one point, I think he was he wasn't the reason for the safety car, but you have to admit, getting into the top 10 after being in the gravel in any series is fair impressive. And he managed to get better because Blank has ruined his run through the final chicane. But it's not gone that much better for Zenitachi, to be honest, and Press may well get 2 positions in 1 here. He tries to go to the outside, but it's been blocked off by Blank for now. Zenitachi really did get a bad run, to be honest, and then there could be contact here, and it could come Kenny Press's way without him having to do anything.
Yeah, so Kenny Press really is pressing on, isn't he? Putting really, really hard pressure on the guys in front there. Nathan Blank with a fantastic move round the outside, very confident on the brakes, round the outside of Paul Zenitachi as he has a little cheeky look up the inside. Oh, Paulie putting moves on there where it's a little bit on the edge, but I tell you what, it is fantastic to see drivers racing this hard and this clean. Paul Zenitachi having a look up the inside. That door was definitely closed there by Nathan Blank, but he hasn't sacrificed his run. I tell you what, Jack, these Clios are providing some of the best sim racing I've actually ever seen.
Yeah, they are, and Zenitachi's just lining everything up, but he's firing blanks at the moment, isn't he, unfortunately, as Nathan is in 6th place. Kenny Press has got Robin Walters, by the way. You can see the race from the rearview mirrors of Zanatachi, who goes to the inside of the final chicane. It's going to be last of the late breakers. Zanatachi up the inside. And it's Zanatachi's race move as well as Walters gets up ahead of Kenny Press, who gives him a little bit of a nudge, but nothing untoward, I would say. It's just the way that the race goes sometimes. Smith up the inside as well, who's just appeared out of absolutely nowhere, probably thanks to the fact that these 4 drivers all had terrible runs through the final chicane. Smith is really in amongst it now, and he's probably hoping that, I mean, this is a recovery drive as Nathan Blank goes wide. Doesn't have as big an impact as maybe one would have first suspected, but Brad Smith, after being in the pit lane, one of the causes of the safety car, into 9th place. I mean, that's very impressive. It could get better as he makes a... Ooh, tell you what, Dave, heart in mouth moment there. I'm very much glad that he hit the brake that hard.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very, very brave move, but what it's actually done is it's really sacrificed his run, and Kenny Press now is looking all over the back of himself, and he's put extra pressure on himself. Robin Walters here is trying to make the best of this scenario, and in fact, Robin Walters probably looking at this and going, you know what, if I can get myself up into sort of 6th place here ahead of Paul Zanatachi, Kyle Felvus isn't that far up in front in 4th place, and regarding how the start of the race went, damage limitation, you'd be thinking, you know what, I'll take that and move forward on the next round.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, sometimes damage limitation is what it comes down to, isn't it? In a race evening. I mean, if race 1 really doesn't go your way, you really do have to get a mature head on and just think, right, how many points can I realistically get without having the risk of falling off the track again? Nicky Taylor is catching up to Martin. Oh, no. Oh, I'll tell you what. Eye of the needle stuff there by, was that Brad Smith and Kenny Press? Well done to them. But again, Robin Walters drops down to 9th place. We didn't see exactly what happened between himself and was it Nathan Blank? But still, very dramatic. But I would say, we're not entirely sure what happened between those 2 drivers. Big props to the likes of the man on your screen at the moment, Brad Smith and Kenny Press, for avoiding that one, because that was eye of the needle.
Yeah, I mean, I think I should probably just stop saying stuff, because I think that's another curse to the commentator there, isn't it?
I think it genuinely is, actually.
It's not going in my favour here tonight, but I tell you what, fair play, Paul Laramie still sat there up in 5th place at the moment, soaking up all that pressure from Paul Zanatachi. Paul is looking very, very racy indeed here. He might put a cheeky nose up the inside. He's gone left, he's gone right. But Paul's put his car bang on in the middle, doing exactly what we mentioned about on Monday during that coaching session. It's all about, as that lead driver, instead of giving the driver behind a creative control to put his car in certain places, you put that car where you want him to go. So if you don't want him to go up that right hand side, you make sure you put your car where he can't put his car. So very, very good driving there by Paul. And actually the other Paul behind, fair play, trying to be creative, come up with different moves. But I tell you what, 4 minutes left of this race, this battle for 5th is definitely not done yet.
Yeah, and with about 4 minutes to go as well, it's about that time of the evening that we start to have a headache, Dave, because we have to try and decide who's our driver of the round. And there has been some big shouts today. I think a lot of people have put their name on this one and are hoping for better. But I have to say, actually, before we start talking about that, Nicky Taylor's caught right up to the backside of Martin Johnson. So while I'm reminding everybody to put your votes down in who you want to be driver of the day, and we'll try and take it into consideration, we'll watch this battle, because Nicky Taylor, with flashing the light, is very much hoping to take advantage of a very poor evening for his championship rival Robin Walters. And Nicky Taylor does go into the race lead, but more importantly, does he get a half-decent run out to the final chicane? Max Sutton is up the inside of Johnson, but there's no room to get up the inside of Taylor. And I think Sutton's going to have to go for something slightly more inventive here. And he's gone 3 wide into the turn 1. It's never going to really work. Neither driver, to be honest, really gets a proper undercut on Nicky Taylor. So Sutton does get ahead of Johnson after he's led this race for 16 and a half minutes. No longer leads it, but Nicky Taylor and Sutton, I think this one's going to carry on. Carl Felvus is there as well as it looks like Johnson. Well, he's held it absolutely sensational, to be fair, hasn't he there, Dave? That was proper Tokyo drift down here at East Midlands Airport.
It was indeed, and I noticed Robin Walters, just as all that happened there, dropping back down to 10th place. So actually Robin Walters with a little bit of damage here, and John Jones off in the gravel, so maybe that was a coming together between them two drivers. Martin Johnson now dropped from 1st place to 4th. That was exactly a mirror incident there from, I believe, remind me on, was it Daniel Adams, I think, near the start of the race, where he just dropped an outside tyre in that braking area going into Old Hairpin, and it just meant that super aggressive snap, doing very, very well to save that indeed. So well done, Martin Johnson. Paul Laramie and Paul Zanetechi here with a battle through the chicane. I told you this wasn't done for P5. I tell you what, this is the race that just keeps on giving. What a fantastic 2 races this has been so far.
Yeah, and if you look further back as well, Nathan Blank on Brad Smith is still heating up as well. So, I mean, to be honest, there's been battles all over the place, and Nathan Blank does go up the inside of Brad Smith. I mean, with 2 minutes to go, we do have to start thinking about driver of the round, Dave, and it is very much a difficult decision, to be honest. I know the admins are chatting in the Discord at the moment, and we can't really nail down a driver either. So we really do need your participation in terms of the audience as Nathan goes for the racing line. I thought Smith was about to power into the side of him. Yeah, Tom Fowler, does the broadcast, said the driver of the round should go to the top 13 drivers. To be honest, it has been a very, very entertaining evening. It's not difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to pick a driver of the round because it's been a bit of a dull evening. It's very rare that happens, but sometimes everyone has provided us with entertainment, and therefore it's difficult to pick between everyone.
Yeah, exactly that. I honestly, this is one of the first times, sometimes it's between 2 drivers, but honestly, I could put about 6 names in the bag for driver of the day here. There's been so many standout moves, standout drives. I mean, the way this has been racing tonight is truly exceptional. Well, for every driver that watches this back, honestly, fantastic racing. Very, very well done to you all. And regardless of your finishing position, you've absolutely drove the wheels off all of these cars.
I'm going to angle, because we do need a decision, I'm going to angle towards Nicky Taylor, I'll be honest. I know we don't always like to do it to the quickest drivers and the drivers who do the I'll tell you what, actually, I'll get back to that in a second, because Martin Johnson's got a fantastic run out of Old Hairpin here, and Felvus is going to have to do quite a lot to hold off Johnson, who has found some pace, to be honest. And I thought once these drivers had got past him, he was going to just fall back and maybe take a happy 4th. But right now, he's really putting Felvus under an enormous amount of pressure and making him work for this 3rd place. Doing a brilliant job. He's not going to hold on to his 100% win record from reverse grid races, but he is potentially going to hold on to 100% of podium finishes in reverse grids, and I'm sure that'll still be a record that we'll be talking about, or he'll probably be talking about, especially for years to come, but it's not quite happening. Oh, and we've hit the checkered flags. Apologies, but Nicky Taylor takes the victory, and I think that was quite a close finish, to be honest, to the timer. Mick Sussin in 2nd place. He'll be absolutely delighted with that. Carl Felvus holds on to that 3rd place, and Martin Johnson, I thought, was going to get another lap to try and take it away from him, but I was false. 5th place is Paul Laramie, Zanatachi in 6th, Kenny Press in 7th, Nathan Blank in 8th, Brad Smith in 9th, with Robin Walters just about in the top 10, and that is going to really change the championship standings. Thorpe in 11th with Jones in 12th, Adams in 13th. I think he must have gotten away from some of his tech issues, but it's still an unfortunate end to the evening to him. But yeah, Dave, I don't know about you, but I mean, you're picking out of a very good bunch of drivers, but I'm probably going to go for Nicky Taylor. Is there any objections from you?
No, Taylor did do a very, very impressive drive there. A great race 1 and a very, very good race 2 as well. Some very committed moves, very, very clean as well. So, yeah, I've got to admit, it's very, as you say, super, super hard to choose a driver of the day. But yeah, we've got to choose a driver, and to be fair, Taylor is more than deserving of that title.
Absolutely. And so I believe we do have a couple of drivers, including Nicky Taylor, obviously, because he took that race victory to chat to, but you're probably not going to chat to him just yet, because I imagine first on the calling card, Dave, will be Kyle Felvus.
It will indeed, and it's only just to be fair, Kyle. I mean, you probably thought, we'll manage to get onto the back of Martin Johnson reasonably quickly there towards the end, but once you actually got past him, it wasn't job done. He looked really, really hungry for that third place, didn't he?
Yeah, he was really trying to get that overtake done, but I just put the car in the right places, and he wasn't able to get the speed he needed to get past. I didn't actually think I'd be back in here tonight, seeing as I was starting P10, but I had a brilliant race.
Yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal effort to try and pull yourself back through the grid. Obviously, the safety car played a little bit of a part with the whole bunching back up. But I tell you what, it was another fantastic race there. Very, very close race, and huge racing respect between a lot of the drivers there.
Yeah, I just want to say to everyone, all of the drivers, brilliant driving. This Clio Cup is probably the most fun I've had sim racing.
Well, as I say, a huge congratulations, Kyle, on bringing home a P3 there and a phenomenal race 1 result as well. Huge congratulations, and really looking forward to seeing what you can do next time out.
Thank you.
And we'll move forward on our P2 driver, and Mick Sutton. I'm going to imagine you're not too disappointed with that result.
No, I'm pretty happy for an old bloke.
I've got to admit, that was about the answer I was anticipating there. And to be fair, for all you were sitting in second place, you were looking really, really racy, and actually the pace you were on could have been definitely fighting for the win there.
Yeah, I thought, if I could just keep on his tail, keep within, half a second of him, he might just make a mistake somewhere and let me past. But there was no way I was driving past him. He was well too consistent for that.
And I've got to ask, there was a moment there towards the end of the race. You came out the chicane, you had the run on both, I believe it was Nicky Taylor, and I'm trying to remember, it might be Martin Johnson, I think, on the left-hand side. And I could tell you were closing in on them down to turn 1 and just didn't really have anywhere to use that speed to get that advantage. And then we went and made it 3 wide into turn 1. You must have been thinking that was some driving there, and the racing respect between them. Awesome driving there.
Yeah, brilliant it was, and nobody took any risks that they didn't need to, kept it nice and clean. And I've learned a lot in this academy about just not trying to win the race in every corner. You've got to take your time and just back off when you need to. Try and use your head, not your feet.
Yeah, that is exactly what the academy's here for, Mick. And if I'm truly honest, I've seen a huge improvement from you, and exactly what you're saying. It's all about that patience and calculating when it's good to make the move, not just as soon as you're on the bumper. So phenomenal effort tonight, and huge congratulations taking a P2, and hopefully carry that momentum forward in the next round.
Thanks very much, and well done everybody else. Good clean racing.
Thank you, Mick, and move forward on our P1 driver and also driver of the round, Nicky Taylor. It was a great drive in race 1, but race 2, I mean, what a way to pull yourself through the grid nice and cleanly, and some of their moves you're pulling, absolutely phenomenal out there.
Yeah, I mean, just got through. When I was in the massive gaggle of cars at the start, I kind of just held back a bit, because I knew I could see Kyle and Robin were going and trying to bomb through as early as possible, and I know in these things that isn't really the best strategy. So I held back, and then there was a collision between Robin and I think it was Paul Laramie at the time, or someone, I don't know really. But yeah, I managed to pick my way through that and then catch Mick. Mick looked really, really quick, to be fair, which I wasn't really expecting. So that was a bit of a shock, but yeah, I got past. And then Martin, I done into the chicane, and I was a bit worried because obviously I'm going to lose a lot down the straight, and then it almost got a little bit leery, but great racing respect between me, Mick and Martin in that situation. So
yeah, I mean, that was exactly the battle I was on about with Mick. I take it that was one of their moments where you're holding the white line and Mick is on your rear bumper and you're just thinking, I really hope he hits the brakes at the same time as me, otherwise turn 1 isn't going to be a pretty sight. But as you say, I really feel that as a community and on a grid, you're really starting to build up that sort of understanding of the drivers and know what the traits of certain drivers are. And it's actually meaning this race, and honestly, Nicky, go back and watch the race tonight because it was absolutely fantastic to watch. Very well done for putting on a brilliant spectacle.
Will do go and watching it back because I do normally, to be fair, but obviously this is a better round, probably my best round over this and TT's. I think to be fair, I think I gelled a bit more with the TT compared to the Clio, but just still extracting time out of it, and it's been great, and hopefully Netterton, which I think we're at next, will be phenomenal. So yeah, the driving standards have been amazing this season in Academy, and hopefully they can continue this way.
Well, hopefully they do indeed. Huge congratulations, Nicky, on taking that win, and also our driver of the day as well there. Huge congratulations, and we'll speak to you next time out.
Yes, have a good one, lads.
And there we go, Jack. A great round here at Donington. It definitely hasn't disappointed at all. Action from start to finish, and also driving standards that I think anyone would be really, really happy with there.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you line up a great championship, a great car, a great group of drivers, and an even better track as well. It's always going to end up being pretty spectacular, but we can actually look at the great drivers on your screen now and how they line up for the championship standings. It is awfully close. Still, it's not quite as close as it was, but it's still anyone's game, really, with Nicky Taylor with 100 points, the first to hit triple figures. Carl Felvus in second place, 96, only 4 points back, and halfway through a championship, pretty much nothing. Robin Walters, a little bit further back. He'll be probably slightly disappointed with that in 14 points back, but he knows only one poor round for either of the drivers ahead of him, and he's right back in the mix because he's got pace pretty much anywhere he goes in this Clio Cup. Martin Johnson still doing very well in fourth after, as we mentioned, 2 first place in previous rounds and a fourth today. So 75 points, but Mick Sutton's really put on a charge as well with 74 points, only 1 point behind Johnson. And with the momentum that he'll take from Donington Park, I'm sure he'll be pleased about having that sort of points haul right now in the season. Paul Zanatechi, he probably deserved 6th place on average tonight. Well, it's 6th place in the championship for him as well. Nathan Blank, 7th, Paul Laramie 8th. John Jones in 9th, and 10th is Kenny Press. And you can see Brad Smith, Simon Thorpe, Hayden Phillips, and Daniel Adams. Andy Cowell, actually, I missed him out, rounding out the rest of the field. So great championship, the second half of the championship to look forward to, Dave, there.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? Still fantastic tracks left to go to. I tell you what, this is shaping up that this is going to be a championship that goes all the way to that reverse grade race at Cadwell Park. I can just sense it now. There's drivers for me that really seem to be starting to get to very good grips with this car and being very competitive. As Nicky said, Mick Sutton there really starting to find a little bit of pace in this car, starting to find his form, and can definitely bring himself up into this championship. So let's see what next round brings.
Yeah, and especially as Cadwell Park, probably the Clio lends itself slightly more to Cadwell Park than the Audi did, and I remember losing my voice after the Audi finale at the Cadwell Park, so I'm looking forward to it. But you can see on the schedule there that we have got Snetterton 300 next, and there we go, boom. I knew that graphic would come up. It's as if Tom can hear us, isn't it? But the Wednesday, 24th of November, next week, same time, you can catch more Clio Cup action. And if tonight didn't wet your whistle, then you're just not a racing fan, to be honest. So if you did like it, then please do subscribe. We're also covering the Super Touring Car Championship. That's next Tuesday at 7:30, so 10-minute later start. But you're pretty much under the same sort of regime, to be honest. That's round 3 at Snetterton 300. So we're off to Snetterton twice next week, Dave. So that'll be easy for the notes, won't it? But an absolutely sensational evening's racing. A big thank you to all the drivers for putting on such a brilliant show. And a big thank you to everybody at home, whether you've watched us silently or you've screamed along at your computer or phone along with your favourite drivers. It's been a pleasure being your host this evening. And on behalf of me, Dave, and Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast, it's time to say good night. We hope to see you next Tuesday and next Wednesday for more Super Touring and Clio Cup action. We'll see you then. Good night.
Between the two of them, the inside of coats, Parker gets too heavily involved, and that's Whitehead and Coates.
Woo!